Hi, my name is Deanna, and I got out of sexual abuse from a man that was 3 times my age. In high school, I fell in love with acting, but actually my teachers, they said I couldn't do acting. So I went for the children's auditions and they got me to sing on my own. So they got me out in a corridor and I was singing sort of in front of them. And they goes, they seemed impressed by my singing. And the next time I came back, they goes to me, "Oh, we'd like you to sort of read for one of these parts." And for my first time going and doing acting properly, I was actually really shocked. I was on top of the world. I was finally doing what I wanted to do. When it gets nearer the time to the performances starting to kind of ramp up, we're getting more and more rehearsals. The backstage crew start to come and sort of check the lighting out, the sound, all the bits and pieces, get the mics on people, and, it becomes even more exciting. And BB introduced himself. So to put in perspective, BB was 68, and at this time I was 18 years old. After a few days of knowing BB, he decides to kind of sort of have a chat with me and get to know me a bit more. He's asking these questions like, "What's your favourite colour?" And I'm like, "My favourite colour is purple." And he goes, "Do you have anyone in the music industry that you look up to?" And I turned around to him and I said, "Yes, I really, really look up to Demi Lovato and Jessie J." For that reason, he then goes, "Oh, I know Demi Lovato, like, personally." And I get all excited and I get really, really hyped and things like that. And I'm like, "Can I meet her?" Things like that. And because at that time, it was like, I'm not sure acting or singing. I'm not sure which one I want to go into. So I was like, I really want to meet her. And he goes, "Yeah, of course we can meet her. But I want to get you to hear you to sing, and I want to help you with your singing first." I suppose as a teenager, so sort of 18 years old, I was very naive and I was very sort of skeptical. And even to today, like someone can say something to me and I will automatically believe what they say unless they give me a reason not to. For a couple of months, we must have frequently gone to this church to sort of sing. He would get me mic'd up and I would pretend like I was on stage. I would pretend like I was singing in front of thousands of people in the O2 Arena or something like that. But it kind of didn't really get escalated until a couple of months of this singing. So that's how he gained my trust, and that's how he started to groom me and started that grooming process. After a couple of months, he's getting very close to the play and very close to doing all the performances. So he started actually saying to me, "I'll come pick you up and I'll take you to practices." And we're talking about practices being 2-3 times a week. It's a big commitment. And as I myself don't drive, he was offering to do this as like a favour to me. It was fairly neutral in the car rides. It was just like, "Hey, how are you? Like, have you done anything good this morning?" Like, it was very like what you would have at the beginning of a call with a friend. We were going on car rides. He was taking me out for ice cream. He was taking me out for meals out and things like that. And he would pay all the time. But there was one time when I was at his and he kept filling up my glass, kept filling it and filling it and filling it. And it conspires that I had drunk about 3/4 of a litre bottle of vodka that night. To the point where I woke up the next morning and I must have collapsed on his sofa. But I woke up the next morning and I was still tipsy the next morning. He was most of the time trustworthy and loving and kind until he started saying to me, "I've got healing hands, And then it got to the point where he was saying to me that he'd been telepathically communicating with Demi Lovato. And he's gone, "Oh, actually, she's not very well. She's pregnant. She's, very early pregnancy. She's just found out. The world doesn't know yet, but it's not going to last. The pregnancy is not going to last, sort of thing. It's not viable. But do you want to help her? Do you want to help her save this pregnancy?" And I've gone, "Of course I do." Like, being this like helpful, like 17, 18-year-old, I've gone, "Yes, I want to help. I want to help, in whatever way I can." One picture that was circulating at the time that kind of fitted along with his story. Demi was sitting in an audience of, I think it was some sort of award show. And she had 2 other celebrities sitting either side of her, and they both had their hands on her stomach, almost like she was pregnant. And it was one image, just one singular image, that he then used and run with it. He's gone, "The only way that you can help her is that if I use my healing hands through you to help her. I have to touch you in places down below to help her, and it has to be a female because she's female." And every so often, like every time, we get lower and lower, and he would say, "Oh, it's starting to work." And then a couple of days later he would turn around and said, "Our efforts are working but not enough." And then he gets to the point where he says, I need to direct my healing power through the ends of my fingers up into Demi's uterus through you. I've taken a deep breath and I've gone, I don't really want to do this. And he's gone, I know you don't want to do it, but in order to help Demi, we need to. And so I've gone, okay then. And because I've said okay then, that has apparently given him consent and given him the ability to do it. I've sort of gone, I've got dressed again. I've then gone, it's almost like he does it and then I'd go back to normal and it'd be like nothing's happened in a way. So he would abuse me and I didn't even see it as abuse at the time because I'm just thinking, oh, well, I'm just helping Demi. And as twisted as it sounds now as an adult, I can see that was grooming, that was abuse. When you're in that moment, it is so hard to realise that it is abuse. Because you're wrapped around their little finger, they're, explaining everything, they've got a reason behind everything. And so you're believing it because you're thinking, oh, there's a reason for that, there's a reason for that, there's a reason for this. And you're thinking, it must all be true. So in the beginning, it was just me and him. I wouldn't share what was happening with anyone. I actually was losing an incredible amount of weight. I went from a UK size 16 to a UK size 8 to 10. I got very slim. One of the girls from the drama group who we were starting to rehearse for the next performance, she pulled me aside and she goes to me, has BB been hurting you? And I turned around, I denied the whole thing. I said, no, he's fine. Like, we're just friends. We're just, it's fine. Nothing's going on. Like, it's all good. And she goes, okay, but if anything ever does happen and you want to talk to me, then I'll always be here to listen. And then we got on with rehearsal as normal. And I'm constantly thinking about what she said. And what she said helped me to switch that light bulb on and to actually think, is what he's doing okay? Or is what he's doing wrong? And at the end of that rehearsal, before we all went home, I pulled her aside and I said, he has actually been hurting me. I burst into tears, I cried, she hugged me, and she basically said to me, you don't have to tell the police, but I would strongly encourage that you do, because it will help it to stop, and if he wants to go and hurt anyone else out there, it might prevent him hurting someone else. And so she actually supported me in starting the police investigation and telling the police. And bear in mind, I haven't even told my parents yet. Like, I haven't even told them what's going on. I didn't tell anyone because I was fine. I was coping. I had my own coping mechanisms. I was okay. I didn't need anyone else. And it wasn't until the police got involved that my emotions got the better of me and I started getting in touch with those emotions. Within that night, a police officer came out. She came to the house and we must have sat there for about 2 hours doing the initial interview. They've taken all this information, she's gone, and then I've gone to bed. And I haven't actually got to bed until maybe about 2:30, 3 o'clock. I'm in bed, I'm tossing and turning. I'm not able to really sleep because I've just had this conversation about what's been happening for the past 9 months with this police officer. And I'm then woken up at about midday the next day from a phone call from a male police officer saying, we've arrested BB. I had told my parents the night literally just before the officer had arrived. My dad and me have, not always had the best relationship, but at that time he was there when I needed him to be. BB was under these bail conditions and the actual investigation took just under 2 years. And after 18 months, I got a letter through the post. I opened this letter and it said that the case was being closed due to not enough evidence. I immediately burst out crying. I screamed at the top of my lungs because I was just like, he's getting away with it. He's getting away with hurting me. They're not believing me. They're not helping me in any way. And in the letter it said that because the case was being closed, his bail conditions would be terminated, so he wouldn't need to follow any of the bail conditions. The case would no longer be investigated, that he would basically be getting away scot-free. And I appealed the decision, and within a couple of weeks after my appeal, they came back and said, I agree with the original officer, there's not enough evidence. And as somebody who's been hurt in that way, you want justice for what you've been through. And that was one of the hardest parts of my recovery, was having to deal with the fact that someone had done something wrong to me, but they weren't being punished for it. So it's been quite a few years since the abuse happened, and in those years I have attempted suicide several times. I was waking up from nightmares, I was having panic attacks, I was having flashbacks, I was hearing his voice in places that I shouldn't have been hearing his voice, and it was horrible. It was consuming. I was literally a shell of myself, because if I was awake, I'd have these flashbacks. If I was asleep, I'd have these nightmares. So I couldn't escape from this trauma world that I was in. And I have been in and out of low periods, and I have received a lot of help from the mental health team. I've received a lot of help from charities here in the UK. But my biggest turning point was having a therapy, and this particular therapy is a trauma therapy. It is called EMDR, Eye Movement Desensitization Reprocessing Therapy. So for me, it was vibrating buzzers in each of my hands that would alternately buzz sort of left, right, left, right. I had 6 sessions, and after those, I noticed a dramatic improvement with my symptoms. After going through that experience, I decided that I really wanted to help people who struggle with mental health. So I actually started training to become a mental health nurse, and I did the first year, and then I gave up because it was too hard. I did one 12-week placement, and I couldn't hack it. I don't know what it was. It was just something about the scenario, the environment. There was also one girl on my course who didn't like me and was bullying me because of whatever she decided was what she wanted to bully me for. And I decided this isn't for me. So I decided, okay, I'm going to give it a break. And, I ended up in hospital again. And I basically was described at one point as a revolving door patient. It's basically someone who goes into hospital, they get discharged, and then a little while later they come back in, and that revolving door cycle of going in and out again. And I was going into hospital about once every 6 months, so about twice a year. You're detained, which means you can't just go to the shops or whatever. You've got to stay there because you're so unwell that they feel that you can't look after yourself. This was, I believe, a year after my friend killed herself, because my friend tried to kill herself a few times before she actually succeeded. And all those times I called the police on her. I got the police out to her, and they saved her about sort of maybe 6 or 7 times. And the one time that I didn't get her message in time, she succeeds. And having that almost guilt in my mind for that first year was horrible. It weighed me down. And then on the year of anniversary, it all became too much. And that's when I became very unwell again. I know that she believed in me more than I even believed in myself at the time. And I know that she's looking down on me and she's proud of me for doing what I'm doing. When I posted my abuse story on YouTube, there's people who have written down to say, you helped me. I'm currently recovering from an abusive relationship, and hearing your story has helped me to come to terms with mine better. Those sort of comments are always going to make me smile that I've helped someone. Whatever I can do to help someone is my ultimate goal. So my advice for someone who is going through anything similar to myself and my story is to seek help. Seek help when you feel that you're able to, and talk to people that you trust. So you may trust the person that you're in a relationship with, but if they're doing things that you don't like, talk to a friend, talk to someone else in your family. Ask questions, see if what they're doing is right, because you never know. Sometimes all it can take is you asking a question or a family member asking a question for you to realise that what you're in is abuse. And then after you get out of these abusive relationships, take time for yourself. Mental health can be exhausting, and self-care is one of the best forms of healing, in my opinion. And self-care can look different to everyone. So for some people, self-care is face masks and painting their nails. For others, it's baking. And for others, it's getting tucked up and cozy in bed. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you'd like to follow me on my YouTube and influencing journey, then my links will be in the description box down below this video. And don't forget that I believe in you, even if no one else does.